It's 4 in the morning. Inside a massive warehouse, the lights are low. And somewhere in the dark, a human voice gives an order. The worker speaks almost like calling a coworker. Proteus, move those carts to outbound. Prioritize the urgent orders. Then a short pause, and a low robot resting on the floor starts to move. Smoothly, on its own, down a path a person used to walk. For decades, warehouse robots were basically machines with fences. They moved where they were told. They worked only where humans allowed them. But now something is changing. Amazon's next robot is learning to understand human language, judge what's urgent, and plan its own route. That sounds like progress, right? Maybe it really is. Here's the uncomfortable question I can't shake. Stay with me a second. What if the scariest job loss of the AI age never shows up as a layoff? What if it shows up as a job that never appears? Let me back up. On June 4th, 2026, Amazon held an event near London called Delivering the Future. And they showed off something new. At first glance, it looks like just another warehouse story. A robot moves a cart, a machine sorts a box, time gets saved. But this robot, called Proteus, is different. The old version only worked in dock areas, moving heavy carts weighing almost 400 kilograms. The new one can roam the whole warehouse floor. And more importantly, you no longer program it with code. You just talk to it. An Amazon Robotics executive put it like this. You tell it what needs to be done. It figures out the priority, the route, the timing. Read that line again. It figures out the priority, the route, the timing. Doesn't that sound like what a new human worker used to learn? Proteus isn't alone. Amazon also showed Stark, a robot that handles totes, and Vulcan, its first robot with an actual sense of touch. All of this comes wrapped inside a huge number. A €10 billion investment, around $12 billion into Amazon's European network. Stark is set to roll out to 15 European sites by 2027. The new Proteus is planned for Europe in the first half of that same year. So this isn't a science fair demo. It's a roadmap, a timeline. A robot that listens is moving from the lab toward the warehouse floor. The robot is no longer just following a fixed path. It's starting to understand instructions. It's starting to make choices inside the work. Now, to be fair, Amazon has a clear story for all this, and a big part of it really is true. Let me give it to you straight. The company says these robots take on the painful work. Moving heavy carts, walking long distances all shift, doing the same motion over and over. And that argument is real. Warehouse work can be exhausting. It's physical, it's repetitive. Sometimes it's dangerous. Anyone who's done it knows that. So if a robot lifts the heaviest, most punishing tasks off a human body, that is not automatically a bad thing. It can be a real gift. Amazon's message is simple. The robots assist people. They don't replace them. They free workers up for higher skilled tasks like quality control. The company even says it's creating new jobs alongside the robots, and that it's hired hundreds of thousands of people since automation began. And you know what? On the surface, that all sounds reasonable. So why does something still feel off to you? Let's find out together. Here's the thing. The real question was never whether robots help today's workers. Of course, they can help the people already inside the building. The real question is about tomorrow. When the work grows, when more orders come in, will the company still hire humans at the old rate? Assist, not replace. Okay, but assist whom? And replace what? Hold on to those two questions because they change the whole story. So let me tell you about a document. In October 2025, the New York Times reported on internal Amazon strategy papers. And the numbers were stunning. According to that reporting, Amazon's robotics team believed automation could let the company avoid hiring more than 600,000 U.S. workers by 2033. Read that carefully. Not fire 600,000 people. Avoid hiring them. Do you feel the difference? Because that difference is the whole point. The same documents reportedly aim to automate about 75% of operations, even though Amazon expects to sell roughly twice as much. Twice the sales, but not twice the workers. That gap between how much grows and how many get hired is where this whole story lives. Now, Amazon pushed back hard. A spokesperson said the leaked papers reflect just one team's view, not the company's overall hiring strategy. And they have a point. One internal document is not destiny, so let's not pretend a single memo proves the future. Fair enough. But here's why economists pay attention anyway. The first effect of automation often isn't firing the people you already have. It's quieter. The more common move is this. When the business grows, the company simply doesn't hire as many new people as it used to. Sales go up, volume goes up, delivery speeds go up, but the headcount, it stays almost flat. The growth happens without the new jobs. So picture one warehouse. Old way, growth meant hiring 1,000 new workers. New way, it only needs 300. What about the other 700? Those 700 people were never laid off. There's no pink slip, no dramatic shutdown. They were simply never hired in the first place. They vanish from the story before the story even begins. And that's exactly why this doesn't show up clearly in the layoff numbers. The first casualty may not be the worker who gets fired. It may be the worker who never gets hired. Let that sit for a moment. Okay, but maybe you're thinking, so what? Those were just simple jobs anyway. Pushing carts, moving boxes. Who really wants that work? I get it, but let me ask you something. Where did you actually learn how work works? Not from a textbook, right? Here's what most people miss. Entry-level jobs aren't just cheap labor. They're training systems. They're where humans learn how work actually works. A new warehouse worker learns by moving, scanning, checking, repeating. Boring? Maybe. But that's how they learn the floor, the flow, the system. It's the same in an office. A junior analyst learns by cleaning data, drafting notes, doing the basic research nobody else wants to do. These tasks look dull from the outside, but for a beginner, they're the first rung of the ladder, the place where you start climbing. And here's the painful part. AI and robots are very, very good at one specific thing, attacking exactly that first rung. Picture a ladder. At the top, skilled workers, managers, robot supervisors. But the bottom rung, it's gone. Faded out, almost invisible. The skilled jobs still exist up there, but how does a beginner reach them with no first step to stand on? That's the trap. And this isn't just a worry, there's data. A Stanford study used payroll records from millions of American workers. What they found is striking. In the most AI-exposed jobs, workers aged 22 to 25 saw a 16% relative drop in employment. Their older coworkers, stable, even growing. And it mattered most where AI automates work rather than helps with it. The beginners got hit first. The canaries in the coal mine. Now here's where it gets bigger. Because if you think this is only a warehouse story, I'm afraid you're missing half the picture. In warehouses, robots are learning to move, sort, and prioritize. But in offices, something parallel is happening, and it's just as quiet. Generative AI is learning to write, summarize, code, and answer customers. Different machines, same pressure point. The beginner's work, automated first. A World Bank study looked at millions of US job postings. For jobs most exposed to AI substitution, postings fell about 12% on average, and it got worse over time. The drop grew from 6% in the first year to 18% by the third year after ChatGPT. Who got hit hardest? Entry-level roles. Jobs needing no advanced degree fell 18%. Jobs needing little experience fell about 20%. Administrative support? Down about 40%. Professional services? Down about 30%. The pattern keeps pointing at the same place. The entrance. So picture two doors. One leads into a warehouse, one into an office. On both, the beginner welcome sign is fading. Feel that? The IMF estimates about 40% of jobs worldwide are exposed to AI. In advanced economies like the US, it's closer to 60%. And robots aren't some future fantasy either. In 2024 alone, the world installed 542,000 industrial robots, more than double a decade ago. China alone now runs over 2 million factory robots. This isn't tomorrow's technology, it's today's infrastructure, already humming in the background. So the real issue isn't the total number of jobs, it's the structure of the entrance. Who gets to walk in and start learning? Now wait. Before you walk away convinced the robots are coming for everyone, I have to be honest with you. It's not that simple. Because blaming AI for every hiring slowdown would be a lie. And I don't want to sell you a panic. I want to give you the truth. The job market has been cooling for other reasons too. High interest rates, a slowing economy, companies that overhired during the pandemic, now pulling back. And here's a real counterweight. One New York Fed analysis found the decline in AI-exposed jobs actually began before ChatGPT even launched. That same study found no clear gap between junior and senior roles in those jobs, which makes it hard to pin everything on AI alone. Another Federal Reserve note went further. So far, it found no evidence that industries adopting more AI are posting fewer jobs. None at all. And the New York Fed's business surveys show something hopeful. Most firms say they're retraining workers for AI, not firing them. Technology has always destroyed some jobs while creating others. Calculators didn't end accounting. ATMs didn't empty the banks overnight. History is messy. So no, this is not a robot apocalypse. But here's what keeps nagging me. Can you spot the loophole in that comforting story? New jobs appearing doesn't automatically fix a missing first rung. AI may be turning a temporary hiring slowdown into something far more structural. So where does that leave us? Not with an enemy to fight, but with a question to answer. And it's harder than robots, good or bad. Removing brutal, repetitive, dangerous work? That's a good goal. Nobody romanticizes a sore back at the end of a 12-hour shift. But if we remove the old entry-level tasks, society has to build new entry points. New ways for people to walk in and start learning. If beginners can't learn through simple tasks anymore, companies must build something better. Real apprenticeships, paid training, actual mentorship, not just job postings. And there's a glimpse of where the new rungs could be. Someone has to supervise the robots, maintain them, coordinate the humans and the machines. The future might not be humans versus robots. It might be humans learning to work through robots. But that future doesn't build itself. And that's the part that's on us. Not the engineers, not the robots, us. So who do you think should build that first new rung? Because if we don't, the economy may still grow. The warehouses may still move faster. The packages may still arrive right on time. But millions might find the first door into work was quietly closed before they reached the handle. Not slammed, just closed. So slowly no one noticed. So let's go back to that warehouse at 4 in the morning. The voice, the order, the robot gliding down a path a person once walked. The AI robot doesn't have to fire you to change your life. It only has to make sure the job you'd have started with never appears. That's the quiet labor shock of automation. Not the pink slip. Not the dramatic shutdown. Just a missing posting, a missing first step. So the question isn't simply whether robots take our jobs. It's this. If robots take the first tasks, where will humans learn to become skilled? After hearing this story today, what do you think? That's a wrap for today. I'll see you in the next one.